Well, hi again. Well, in this part, this is the fifth part of the um, discrimination in the labor market lecture of the feminist gender economics course, where basically the feminist school of economics is introduced. This lecture series is prepared for the Middle East Technical University Northern Cyprus campus. Basically, in this part, I want to start. We have already talked on different ways to measure the discrimination, but I want to talk on the occupational segregation case and the glass ceiling case. Occupational segregation case, we have already seen that women are more likely to basically uh, work in occupations where the wages are usually lower and promotional possibilities to get promotion is usually let's say less. Well, in the fields like that's also written here in fields like, for example, the uh, the law, for example. Well, when at the starting point, when you look, the wages start usually at the same level, and when you basically however, women and men advance in their careers, wages of the men get larger than wages of the woman. So I mean that's an interesting case, because even when they are in the same occupation, wage advances of women is usually lower than men, and that might be one reason. I mean, whatever reasons that are causing it, in case of the occupations like law, where actually advancements and getting a higher wage is possible, might be also the reason why women may be concentrating on the fields where wage advancements and promotions are less possible. Plus, maybe also those occupations also might be transformed that way, so that women might be able to work in those occupations. So we have two different questions here. Now, first, why women and men are working more likely to work, or let's say, in certain occupations, and certain occupations are known as male or female occupations. And then, while predominantly male occupations have higher wages and higher promotion opportunities than men, and the case in the relatively mixed occupations, actually we see partial answers. So basically, as in the previous articles, in Nelson's articles, we have seen this all male-female relations within the household itself might be affecting also the labor market, and basically, I mean, and that effect should be certainly can certainly be one thing, right? That might be affecting the woman's ability, to work in occupations which maybe need more fixed hours, flexibility, basically, and maybe even more effort to work on those jobs. But the main point is this idea, the occupational segregation. Well, in some ways, it might also be beneficial at the first stages when women get into the labor market, because they provide at least certain areas where basically women can enter certain fields, certain occupations through which women can enter the labor market. But also, it reinforces the stereotype image of women suitable to do certain jobs and unsuitable to do other types of jobs. And that might be its one problem. And that effect, Lau, Weber, and Winter also write on that, might very well affect the women who are not in traditionally female jobs. I mean, who are working as a lawyer, for example. People might think they might not be they might not be able to get to the job whenever they are called. They might have household duties, and sometimes those household duties might be more important than their professional duties. And as a result, people's willingness to hire a female lawyer might decrease, and they might need to get a lower fee to do that, basically. Well, does occupational segregation completely related to the choices, or does it also partially as a result of discrimination? That's one basic question. And there is some evidence, at least there is some discrimination occurring in way people are, when they see women, when they in certain occupations, male-dominated occupations, when basically women apply to those jobs in male-dominated occupations, basically just being woman might lead to some discrimination. At first thing we might say is actually in the United States that's a very common. For women, whether they are married or not is a much more common question in job applications than men. Secondly, and that's something we have experienced in academic job applications. Actually, they have told on our female applicants at the PhD on that, and there they have told it's a very common thing also in other types of job applications. And the second thing is actually one interesting evidence on this has been found in the orchestral hearings, where basically they would hire someone for the orchestra, a music instrument player, and they hear the person who they will hire. Well, and that those hirings have made in two ways. In one case, they just listen them. They see the person who's playing, and they listen that person. In the second case, they just listen. They don't see. This is blind case. They don't see who is playing. In the second case, women are much more likely to. I'm more likely to be hired than the first one in the experience. It was that way. So when they don't see the person who is playing, people are more likely to hire women than the case when they know actually they are hiring a woman. When they just base their hiring decision on the music that's played. Of course, we can say that people might be thinking that women are actually won't be likely to work as hard, be unflexible in terms of from the perspective of the employer, may quit. All of these things might be a possible potential reason in the mind of the employer who will hire or not hire the woman. And all those weird things might be in real case also, as we have seen in the previous part, affecting women's performance, women's wage. But when people approach the woman with a previous image that they might quit the job, or they might not show as much effort as men, just as a result of their common image of all women, they are likely to discriminate that woman, because that woman might not have those constraints, and a different man might have those constraints. Well, here we are taking the group image, and we assume that group image is applying also to the individuals, instead of evaluating that person as an individual. So, and basically, occupational segregation is one way which might basically create that group image. As for the glass ceiling is something like, you might have at the top a ceiling, but that ceiling is invisible. So actually it looks like women can, and here we basically say at the top we have top positions in any kind of company, or in academia even the higher academic ranks maybe. So those top positions are in theory reachable by the woman, but when they try to go up, they are actually met with problems. I mean, they hit to a ceiling which is invisible and they cannot go up. Is this so? Maybe, maybe not. Well, do we have less women in upper positions? Yes. And if we look to the numbers, you can see some numbers here. For example, in catalysts, 15.4% of corporate officers are women. Women, they held 6.7% of the top spots, 1.2% of the top earners. Well, these are 1995. They have increased since 1995 from 1.2 to 6.7 and 8.7 to 15.4. But you still have a lower amount, basically. So for the board seats, this is 14.8, for example, and you have several other numbers. You also some numbers for the academia, by the way. Look to those numbers. Why this might be the case? One reason might be women might be the first time they might be joining for the first time to the labor force. In 10 years before, 10 years before, 20 years before. So basically, women did not have enough time to move up the ladder. Of course, the problems we have mentioned in the previous part, the time constraints, those things, might also be effective in preventing women getting to the higher positions. But there also a discrimination might be taking place, and the discrimination that discrimination might also be very similar to what we have seen before. The overall ideas, overall characteristics of women, the assumptions on those overall characteristics might be the place. It might very well also be the male culture in the business. As in the previous article we have seen, this dominant male culture, this male altruism, and the fact that actually we have this kind of a culture already in place might maybe think that within this culture a female executive, female supervisor might create problems within the labor force and within their peers. When she interacts with peers, because of the culture itself, not because of the overall efficiency or personal traits of that woman. So all of these things might be creating glass ceiling. So how does glass ceiling affecting the woman in general? That's the question. Why should we be concerned about this? And that's the question also we have in the end. Well, since majority of workers are anyway not at the top executives, should this be our main concern? Some women are not getting to the top. But in Blauvin and Faber says this might basically also affect the way the workplace is constructed, the way the workplace is organized. And especially they argue, again, there's a research there, when women are there at executives, the workplace becomes much more friendly to women in all other positions, especially middle positions. Women are more likely to get those positions. So male culture might be there, preventing women get up, but also the people at the top might preserve that male culture. That might be very well the problem, one problem. sustains the gender discrimination. Anyway, next time we will see the discrimination models. See you in the next part.